5 Stoic Rules to Emotionally Detach from Someone, Stoicism. Heartbreak is a universal experience, be it the end of a relationship, a fading friendship, or a loss that feels impossible to bear. In these moments, we're often caught in a storm of emotions, regret, sorrow, even anger. It's as if the invisible ties to the past refuse to let us go, leaving us trapped in pain. But what if there's another way? What if we could face these struggles with strength and clarity, without being consumed by them? Stoicism offers more than ancient wisdom. It's a guide to navigating life's hardest moments. It doesn't ask us to suppress our feelings or ignore pain, but instead teaches us to accept life's impermanence, to let go, and to find peace within ourselves. In this video, I'll share 5 powerful Stoic principles that will help you emotionally detach and reclaim your inner calm. These timeless rules will empower you to let go with grace, love yourself deeply, and embrace a life of resilience and tranquility. Let's begin this transformative journey together. 1. All connections are temporary. All connections in life are temporary. Whether it's the bonds of love, friendship, or family, these relationships often feel eternal when we're immersed in their most beautiful moments. Yet time, with its quiet yet unstoppable force, inevitably softens even the most intense emotions. This truth is not an injustice, but rather the natural order of life, a reality that Stoic philosophy helps us confront with clarity. As Marcus Aurelius reflected, loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. Understanding this can free us from the grip of excessive attachment, not to make us cold or indifferent, but to help us appreciate what we have without the fear of losing it. The fear of loss often creates the very outcomes we dread. This is evident not only in romantic relationships, but in friendships, familial ties, and even professional connections. Take the metaphor of sand slipping through fingers. When you hold it lightly, it stays in your palm, but tighten your grip out of fear, and it escapes more quickly. Relationships are similar. When driven by possessiveness, control, or anxiety, we suffocate the natural flow of connection. Stoicism, through its principle of focusing on what we can control, teaches us to let go of such destructive impulses. As Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. The more we cling, the more we lose sight of the freedom and respect that sustain a relationship. In the story of 2 fathers, Mr. Rowan and Mr. Paul, who approached their relationships with their sons in starkly different ways. Mr. Rowan, out of deep love but driven by fear, sought to control every aspect of his son Tom's life, from his choice of friends to his career and romantic partners. His intentions were to protect Tom and keep him close, yet the tighter his grip, the more suffocated Tom felt. Eventually, this control drove a wedge between them, leading Tom to distance himself entirely. Mr. Paul, on the other hand, loved his son with equal intensity but chose a path rooted in Stoic principles. He offered guidance without imposing, support without suffocating, and trusted Tom to navigate his own life. This freedom fostered a relationship built on mutual respect and understanding, making their bond stronger and more enduring. Modern life mirrors these contrasts. Parents often feel they must micromanage their children, fearing the loss of closeness or control. Partners cling to each other out of insecurity, and friendships deteriorate under the weight of unspoken expectations. But have you noticed how relationships thrive when we replace fear with trust, control with understanding, and expectations with appreciation? The Stoics remind us that love should be rooted in freedom, not possession. As Epictetus wisely noted, "He who is free in his mind is free indeed." By understanding that all relationships are temporary, we prepare ourselves for change and loss without succumbing to despair. This does not mean we value these bonds any less, but rather that we cherish them more deeply in the present. Seneca, in a poignant letter to Lucilius, wrote, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." Life by its nature is transient, and relationships are no exception. However, Stoicism does not ask us to mourn these truths, but to embrace them with gratitude and resilience. Imagine reflecting on a past relationship, perhaps a friendship or romance that is now faded. Does regret cloud your memory? Or can you look back with gratitude for the joy it brought you? Stoicism teaches us to shift this perspective. When we view relationships through the lens of impermanence, we begin to treasure them more deeply while they last. As Marcus Aurelius advised, receive without pride, let go without attachment. This mindset helps us love authentically, without fear, and let go without bitterness when the time comes. The lesson here is not just philosophical, but profoundly practical for modern living. In a world driven by constant change and uncertainty, Stoicism equips us with the tools to navigate the emotional turbulence of relationships. By accepting the impermanence of all things, we free ourselves from the chains of fear and control. This allows us to cultivate healthier, more meaningful connections that are built on trust and respect rather than anxiety. When we stop clinging, we stop suffering. True love, whether for a partner, child, or friend, is rooted in freedom. To live with this understanding is to live with greater peace and emotional strength. Relationships are like seasons. Each one has its time and purpose. The Stoics teach us to appreciate these seasons without trying to extend them artificially. In doing so, we find not only peace in our hearts, but also the wisdom to nurture relationships that grow naturally and endure without force. Stoicism offers us a liberating truth. We cannot control others, nor can we make relationships last forever. What we can control is how we show up in those relationships with authenticity, gratitude, and understanding. As we practice these principles, we learn to let go of fear and embrace love as it is, not as we wish it to be. Let this be the guiding light in your connections, a love rooted in freedom, a heart unburdened by fear, and a life lived with purpose and serenity. 2. Master your emotions. Life often presents us with challenges where our feelings seem to take control, moments of anger, sadness, or frustration that leave us questioning our ability to stay calm and composed. Stoic philosophy teaches us that emotions, while natural and unavoidable, are not insurmountable forces. Instead, they are responses shaped by how we interpret the world around us. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This insight offers us a roadmap to understanding and mastering our emotions, not by ignoring them, but by learning to manage them with reason and clarity. Think of a time when you felt overwhelmed by anger or hurt, perhaps after a disagreement with a friend or loved one. Their words may have felt like a personal attack, leaving you simmering with resentment or sadness. In such moments, it's easy to let emotions drive your actions, leading to retaliation or avoidance that may damage the relationship further. But as Epictetus reminded us, it is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments concerning them. The pain you feel isn't solely caused by the words themselves, but by your perception of their intent. If you believe those words were meant to harm you, your emotions will respond accordingly. Change your perception, and you change the emotional impact. This doesn't mean you dismiss your feelings, but rather that you face them with reason and understanding. Let me share a powerful example from modern life. Basketball legend Michael Jordan is celebrated not just for his talent, but for his remarkable ability to master his emotions. His career was riddled with setbacks. He was cut from his high school basketball team, missed crucial game-winning shots, and endured countless failures on his path to greatness. Yet he famously said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Imagine if Jordan had allowed these failures to consume him with self-doubt or fear. Instead, he used these experiences to fuel his determination. proving that mastery over emotions can transform setbacks into stepping stones for growth. How can we apply these lessons to our own lives? When faced with strong emotions, ask yourself, is this feeling helping me resolve the situation, or is it clouding my judgment? For example, if anger arises during a conflict, consider whether lashing out will improve the outcome. Often, pausing to reflect reveals that the emotion is a natural reaction, but not a necessary guide for action. Seneca captured this wisdom perfectly when he wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." Mastering your emotions doesn't mean suppressing them. It means stepping back, questioning their purpose, and choosing your response wisely. Let's take a moment to reflect on our everyday lives. How many times have we acted impulsively, driven by emotions, only to regret our actions later? How often do we allow fear, jealousy, or anger to dictate our choices, only to realize they were temporary waves we could have navigated more calmly? Stoicism provides us with tools to step off this emotional roller coaster and approach life with a sense of balance. It teaches us to pause, observe, and question our feelings, making space for reason to guide our decisions. Another modern story that illustrates emotional mastery is that of Sarah, a business leader navigating a highly competitive industry. Sarah faced a major betrayal when a trusted colleague spread false rumors about her to gain an advantage. Her initial reaction was anger and the urge to retaliate, but instead, she chose to pause and reflect. Drawing inspiration from Stoic principles, she reminded herself that while she couldn't control the colleague's actions, she could control her own response. Rather than letting anger dictate her decisions, she focused on maintaining her professionalism and building trust with others in her network. Over time, her composure earned her greater respect, and the truth eventually came to light. Sarah's story shows that mastering emotions is not about suppressing your humanity, but about responding with wisdom and strength in the face of adversity. Mastering your emotions is a journey, not a destination, and it requires practice and patience. The beauty of this journey lies in the freedom it offers, the freedom to live without being controlled by fleeting feelings. When you learn to manage your emotions, you unlock the ability to approach life's ups and downs with resilience and clarity. You begin to see challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities to grow stronger. As we move forward in this exploration of Stoic wisdom, let these lessons guide you. Mastering emotions is not about denying what you feel, but about understanding and directing those feelings in ways that align with your values and goals. Whether it's learning from failure, like Michael Jordan, or finding strength in adversity, like Sarah, the key is to remember that you have power over your mind. 3. Brace your mind for love and loss. Life is a tapestry of moments, woven with love, joy, and the inevitable thread of loss. It is inescapable. People, opportunities, and even parts of ourselves fade with time. Yet this truth need not be a source of despair. Stoic philosophy, with its timeless wisdom, teaches us to prepare our minds for loss, not by succumbing to pessimism or detachment, but by embracing life with greater clarity and serenity. As Epictetus once observed, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. How, then, can we prepare our hearts and minds for loss in a way that strengthens us instead of breaking us? Picture this. You are sitting with your family enjoying laughter and warmth, feeling that life is perfect in this moment. Then a fleeting thought surfaces. This won't last forever. Initially, such a realization might unsettle you, but Stoicism reframes this discomfort. Rather than a morbid warning, it becomes a gentle nudge to cherish the present while preparing for life's uncertainties. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this beautifully when he wrote, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly." Preparing for loss does not mean obsessing over worst-case scenarios, but rather fortifying your spirit so that when loss inevitably arrives, you can face it with grace and strength. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, renowned for her work on grief, outlined the emotional stages we experience in the face of loss: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. This progression reminds us that the shock of loss can be lessened through mental preparation. It is not about avoiding grief, but learning to navigate it with resilience. Consider a mother caring for a terminally ill child. At first, the enormity of the situation may lead her to denial or fear. But as she accepts the reality, her perspective shifts. She focuses on creating memories, sharing laughter, and finding joy in every remaining moment. By mentally preparing for the inevitable, she can treasure each second without being consumed by the shadow of loss. These moments are no less meaningful because they are fleeting. In fact, their impermanence makes them even more profound. If you knew your time with a loved one was limited, how would that change the way you treat them? Would you listen more closely, love more deeply, and let go of trivial arguments? Too often, we are distracted by life's noise, forgetting to truly engage with those we hold dear. Stoic philosophy invites us to confront these questions, not to diminish relationships, but to enhance them. Epictetus reminds us, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." By appreciating the fragility of life, we can transform our fear of loss into a deeper gratitude for what we have. The Stoics were clear about the importance of living with this perspective. Seneca wrote, "You may leave this life at any moment. Have this possibility in your mind, in all that you do, or say, or think." When we live with an awareness of life's impermanence, we stop wasting time on petty conflicts and start focusing on what truly matters. Preparing for loss also frees us from resentment. When we cling too tightly to people or outcomes, we set ourselves up for disappointment. But when we accept that loss is part of life's rhythm, we let go of the need to control what we cannot. This doesn't make relationships less valuable. It makes them priceless. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus wisely said, "When you are kissing your child, say to yourself, 'I am kissing a mortal.'" This mindset doesn't diminish love, it heightens it, teaching us to cherish the people and moments we hold dear without being paralyzed by fear of their end. We begin to brace our minds for love and loss in a practical way. Start by reflecting on the transience of life, not with dread, but with a sense of purpose. When you wake up, remind yourself that today is a gift, and the people you love are gifts too. When conflicts arise, ask yourself whether they truly matter in the grand scheme of things. And when you feel the pang of loss, let it remind you of the beauty that came before it. Loss is not the enemy. It is a teacher. It shows us the value of what we had and encourages us to live more fully moving forward. If you could live each day with this awareness, how much more meaningful would your life become? Would you spend more time building memories and less time holding grudges? Would you listen more closely, speak more kindly, and live more deeply? This is the heart of Stoic philosophy, not to make us indifferent to pain, but to teach us how to embrace life with open eyes and an open heart, knowing that nothing lasts forever, and that's precisely why it matters. As we navigate the inevitability of loss, Stoicism offers us the strength to live with resilience, love with freedom, and let go with grace. It reminds us that while life is impermanent, the moments we create and the love we share endure in our hearts. 4. Let go of what you can't control. Life flows like a river, ceaselessly moving and changing, carrying with it both moments of beauty and turbulence. Some aspects of this river, the twists, turns, and unexpected currents, are beyond our control. Yet we do have the power to choose how we navigate it, how we steer, how we respond to storms, and how we find calm amid chaos. This central truth lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy, which teaches that freedom and peace come from focusing solely on what we can control: our thoughts, actions, and attitudes. As Epictetus so profoundly put it, some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. By accepting this distinction, we release ourselves from the weight of unnecessary worry, futile effort, and misplaced expectations. In a relationship where the other person begins to grow distant, their affection fading without explanation, our instinct in such moments is to grasp tighter, to fight to restore the bond, or to blame ourselves for their emotional shift. What you can control is your reaction. Will you cling desperately to what is slipping away, or will you let go with grace, refocusing your energy on what truly matters? As Marcus Aurelius observed, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The story of Anna, a successful businesswoman who found herself trapped in an unfulfilling relationship with her partner Jack. Jack was unpredictable, often breaking promises and neglecting her emotional needs. Anna spent months trying to mold Jack into the ideal partner, setting rules, engaging in arguments, and pouring energy into changing his behavior. But her efforts only left her drained, resentful, and more distant from her own sense of self. One day, Anna decided to approach the situation differently. Instead of focusing on changing Jack, she turned inward, choosing to focus on what she could control: her expectations, her self-care, and her own happiness. By accepting Jack for who he was, rather than who she wanted him to be, Anna freed herself from the cycle of frustration and found peace. This shift didn't just save her from further disappointment, it empowered her to rebuild her life with clarity and confidence. This principle extends far beyond personal relationships. Think about how much time people waste worrying about how others perceive them, striving for approval or recognition. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, offers a liberating perspective. You will cease to fear if you cease to hope. In other words, by letting go of the hope that others will act in a certain way or give us what we think we deserve, we free ourselves from the anxiety and pain that come from unmet expectations. True freedom comes not from controlling the opinions of others, but from mastering our own response to those opinions. Stoicism teaches us not to abandon effort, but to direct it wisely, toward what we can influence. When we focus on cultivating our own minds, actions, and character, we not only minimize unnecessary suffering, but also unlock the potential to become the best version of ourselves. Think of your mind and your actions as a garden. The soil you tend, the seeds you plant, and the care you provide are entirely within your control. But you cannot stop the rain, prevent the seasons from changing, or dictate whether others appreciate the fruits of your labor. Does this mean you should stop planting? Of course not. It means you focus on what you can nurture and let go of the rest with a peaceful heart. This philosophy isn't about passivity, it's about empowerment. By letting go of the uncontrollable, we reclaim the energy to invest in what truly matters. So what would your life look like if you redirected your energy from external worries to inner growth? What if you released yourself from the burden of controlling others and instead focused on mastering your own thoughts and responses? Perhaps you'd find greater peace in your relationships, more resilience in the face of adversity, and a deeper sense of purpose in your daily life. Stoicism teaches us that this shift is not just a rule for living, it's the foundation of true freedom. As Seneca wisely said, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." Life will always present challenges, uncertainties, and losses, but within these moments lies an opportunity for growth and strength. When you let go of what you cannot control, you liberate yourself from the chains of frustration and find a deeper connection to the present moment. This is not just a path to emotional detachment, it's a journey toward inner freedom and enduring peace. 5. Think of the bigger picture. In the moments when life feels overwhelming, when pain or loss seems to consume everything, ask yourself this simple yet profound question: will this still matter in 5 years? This question, a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, invites us to step back and view our lives as a vast and interconnected whole rather than a series of isolated events. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher-emperor, offers us a timeless reminder. Keep in mind how fast things pass by and are gone. those that are now, and those to come. Pain, disappointment, and even failure can feel all-encompassing in the present. But when viewed through the lens of time, they often shrink into small, almost forgotten fragments of the grander narrative of our lives. Think about the setbacks you've faced. Perhaps it was the end of a cherished relationship, the loss of a job, or a missed opportunity that felt like the end of the world at the time. Did it truly define your life, or has it faded into a distant memory as the years have passed? Clara, a modern artist whose story illustrates this principle beautifully. After months of pouring her soul into a masterpiece, an unexpected accident destroyed her work. In that moment, Clara felt as though her entire creative spirit had been shattered. But instead of letting despair consume her, she recalled the wisdom of Seneca. Time heals what reason cannot. She shifted her perspective, realizing that her identity as an artist was not confined to one piece. 2 years later, looking back, that loss became a stepping stone for her greatest achievements, and the memory of the destroyed work held no pain, only gratitude for the growth it inspired. This principle doesn't ask you to dismiss your emotions or pretend that loss and failure don't hurt. Instead, it asks you to step back, to zoom out, and to see each moment as part of a much larger picture. Now, turn your gaze inward. What moments in your life once felt insurmountable but have since softened with time? Perhaps a heartbreak you thought you'd never recover from, or a missed opportunity that seemed like the end of the road. Stoic philosophy teaches us that detachment from these emotions is not about becoming indifferent, but about managing our responses with wisdom. When you ask yourself whether this pain will matter in 5, 10, or 20 years, you begin to liberate yourself from the grip of temporary suffering. This practice is not just a mental exercise, but a profound way to reframe your experiences, giving you the space to move forward with clarity and purpose. Life often blinds us with its immediacy, making today's struggles feel larger than they truly are. But when you step back and view your life as a whole, you realize that every challenge, every loss, and every heartbreak is just one thread in the tapestry of your existence. This shift in perspective not only helps you endure pain, but also reveals the beauty in your ability to adapt and grow. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." This reminds us that the constant motion of life, even when it brings loss, is what makes renewal and transformation possible. How often do we let short-term emotions cloud our judgment and define our actions? Have you ever let a single argument overshadow an entire relationship? Or allowed a temporary failure to convince you that you're incapable of success? By stepping back and seeing the bigger picture, we can prevent these fleeting moments from becoming permanent obstacles. This doesn't mean ignoring your feelings, but placing them in a broader context that allows you to move forward with wisdom and strength. Another way to think about this principle is to imagine your life as a novel. Every setback or loss is just a single page in a long, unfolding story. Would you stop reading a book because one page is filled with difficulty or sadness? Of course not. You keep turning the pages, knowing that the story will continue to evolve. The same is true for your life. Each moment, no matter how painful, contributes to the richness of your journey, shaping who you are and preparing you for what's to come. When you view life this way, you begin to see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than insurmountable barriers. Pain and loss, while difficult, can become catalysts for transformation. Stoicism doesn't deny the reality of suffering. Instead, it teaches us how to endure it and find meaning within it. As Seneca wisely stated, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. By focusing on the bigger picture, we reclaim the time and energy often lost to worry, regret, and fear. If you are facing a difficult moment right now, how will it look in the context of your entire life? Will you allow it to define you, or will you see it as a small part of a much larger journey? Will you let it hold you back, or will you use it as a stepping stone towards something greater? When you embrace the Stoic principle of seeing the bigger picture, you free yourself from the weight of temporary emotions and open the door to true freedom. In the end, Life is not a collection of isolated moments, but a continuous flow of experiences, each one contributing to the person you are becoming. When you detach from the intensity of the present and view it in the context of the future, you discover that even the most painful losses are just a part of the process. Detachment does not mean rejecting love or avoiding relationships. It means loving with an open heart, knowing that loss is inevitable, but never final. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Look back over the past with its changing empires that rose and fell, and you can foresee the future too." Life will always change, and so will you. Embrace the bigger picture, and you will find the strength not only to endure, but to thrive. Thank you for being here with us in today's video. Before we dive into the next segment, I want to take a moment to truly appreciate your presence. Whether you're new to this journey or have been walking this path with us for some time, your support means the world. You're not just an audience member, you're a vital part of this community. If you'd like, feel free to share your thoughts, experiences, or impressions in the comments. If you're unsure of what to say, a simple "I am a newbie" if you've recently joined, or "I am Stoic" if you've been with us for a while, is more than enough. Every comment, every interaction, serves as a reminder of why we do this, and it fuels us to keep creating meaningful content for you. Now let's move forward on this journey together, shall we? 7 harmful effects of not detaching from your emotions. 1. Loss of behavioral control. When you allow emotions like anger, sadness, or frustration to dominate your actions, you risk losing control of your behavior, leading to choices and reactions you may deeply regret. Negative emotions, when unchecked, often cloud judgment and fuel impulsive decisions. This loss of control doesn't just create immediate consequences, but often sets off a ripple effect in your relationships, career, and personal well-being. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus wisely said, "It is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments about them." The inability to detach from your emotions often leads to judgments clouded by feelings, which can drive you to act in ways that contradict your values and long-term goals. In the heat of an argument with a loved one, anger takes over, and you say something hurtful you don't truly mean. The words leave a scar on the relationship, one that apologies may not fully heal. Or consider a professional setting, where frustration after a setback causes you to lash out at a colleague or make a rash decision, jeopardizing your reputation and the trust others have in you. These moments are not uncommon, and the regret that follows can be a heavy burden. By allowing emotions to dictate your actions, you relinquish the power to respond thoughtfully and with intention. This creates a cycle where emotions trigger actions that lead to regret, which then fuels more negative emotions, trapping you in a downward spiral. In today's fast-paced world, emotional control is more important than ever. We face countless triggers daily: work stress, relationship conflicts, and the pressure to meet societal expectations. The key to navigating these challenges lies in recognizing that emotions are natural but must be managed, not suppressed. Suppressing emotions can lead to long-term damage, while understanding and detaching from them empowers you to act with clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. When you focus on mastering your mind, you regain control of your actions, even in emotionally charged situations. A powerful example of this principle in modern life can be found in professional sports. Athletes often face immense pressure, and those who succeed at the highest level are not just physically gifted but also emotionally disciplined. A player who lets frustration over a missed shot or a bad call dictate their actions is likely to spiral into poor performance. In contrast, those who remain composed, detaching from their initial frustration, are able to refocus, adapt, and excel. The same principle applies in everyday life. Whether it's managing a disagreement at home or a challenging project at work, maintaining control of your emotions enables you to make decisions that align with your long-term goals rather than momentary feelings. The impact of losing behavioral control isn't limited to isolated incidents. It can erode trust and credibility over time. When people perceive you as someone who reacts impulsively, they may hesitate to rely on you in personal or professional situations. Relationships, which thrive on stability and mutual respect, can suffer deeply when one party is prone to emotional outbursts. The result is often a sense of alienation, where others distance themselves, leaving you to deal with the compounded frustration of strained connections and unresolved emotions. Over time, this pattern can lead to feelings of isolation and self-doubt, further reinforcing the importance of emotional discipline. So, how can you break free from this cycle and regain control? Start by pausing when emotions arise. The Stoics believed that the gap between stimulus and response is where your power lies. Instead of reacting immediately, take a moment to assess the situation and ask yourself whether the action you're about to take serves your long-term interests. Journaling can also be a powerful tool. Writing down your emotions allows you to process them in a constructive way, creating space to identify patterns and triggers. Another effective technique is to remind yourself of the bigger picture. As Marcus Aurelius advised, keep in mind how fast things pass by and are gone, those that are now and those to come. By putting your current emotional state into perspective, you can diffuse its intensity and approach the situation with greater wisdom. Detaching from emotions doesn't mean becoming indifferent or cold. Instead, it's about acknowledging their presence while refusing to let them control you. Emotions are valuable. They provide insight into what matters to you and can guide your decisions when approached thoughtfully. However, when emotions are left unchecked, they often become obstacles rather than tools. Recognizing this distinction is the first step toward emotional mastery. The path to emotional control is a journey, one that requires patience and self-awareness. Start small, perhaps by pausing during your next argument or taking a deep breath before responding to criticism. Each step reinforces your ability to separate emotions from actions, allowing you to navigate life with greater confidence and resilience. Ultimately, mastering this skill doesn't just protect you from the harmful effects of losing behavioral control. It empowers you to live a life guided by intention, strength, and inner peace. 2. Weakening of relationships. Relationships, the cornerstone of our personal and social lives, are often the first to suffer when emotions run unchecked. Uncontrolled feelings, anger, frustration, disappointment, can lead to impulsive reactions and thoughtless words that leave lasting scars on those we care about. How many times have you found yourself regretting something you said in the heat of the moment, only to realize it wasn't worth damaging the bond you shared with someone important? The truth is, when we fail to detach from our emotions, minor misunderstandings can escalate into major conflicts. A small disagreement over a forgotten text message or an unmet expectation can snowball into hurtful arguments, leaving both parties feeling unheard and resentful. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, how much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it. When emotions dominate, we tend to focus more on being right than on being kind, often losing sight of the bigger picture. Picture a couple arguing over something trivial, a misplaced item or a forgotten date. The frustration escalates, and before long, accusations are hurled and old wounds are reopened. What began as a small issue has now created a chasm, not because the problem itself was insurmountable, but because unchecked emotions took over. This dynamic isn't limited to romantic relationships. Friendships, familial bonds, and even professional connections can crumble under the weight of repeated emotional outbursts or unresolved tension. Over time, these moments of anger or disappointment chip away at trust and mutual respect, making the relationship fragile and prone to further strain. One of the most subtle yet harmful effects of failing to detach from emotions is the unhealthy dependence it can create. When you allow your mood to hinge entirely on how others treat you, the relationship becomes unbalanced and heavy. You might find yourself seeking constant reassurance or expecting others to fix your bad days, unknowingly placing a burden on them that they may not be equipped to handle. This dependence often leads to frustration on both sides. You feel unsupported, while the other person feels overwhelmed by the weight of your emotions. As Epictetus remarked, man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. When we lack emotional independence, we not only strain the relationship, but also rob ourselves of the ability to find peace within. In a modern context, think about how technology amplifies these challenges. A delayed response to a text or an ambiguous social media post can ignite feelings of insecurity or anger, leading to unnecessary confrontations. Have you ever argued with a loved one over a perceived slight, only to discover later that there was no ill intent? These situations highlight how our emotional interpretations often do more damage than the events themselves. It's not the unanswered text or the forgotten call that weakens the bond. It's our reaction to it, fueled by unchecked feelings of neglect or rejection. We prevent emotions from sabotaging our relationships. The first step is self-awareness, recognizing when your feelings are taking over and pausing before you react. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions, but rather giving yourself the space to process them. For example, if you feel anger rising during a disagreement, take a moment to breathe and ask yourself, what is my goal here? Am I trying to resolve the issue, or am I simply reacting to my frustration? Often, this small pause is enough to shift your perspective and prevent unnecessary harm. Marcus Aurelius suggested, "You always have the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you cannot control." Another strategy is to focus on communication. Many conflicts arise not from what was said, but from how it was said. When you learn to express your feelings calmly and constructively, you create space for understanding rather than defensiveness. Instead of saying, "You never listened to me," try, "I feel unheard, and it's important to me that we talk about this." This approach not only diffuses tension, but also strengthens the bond by fostering mutual respect and empathy. Finally, cultivating emotional independence is key. While it's natural to seek comfort and support from those we love, relying on them to regulate your mood creates an unhealthy dynamic. Instead, focus on developing tools to manage your emotions, such as journaling, meditation, or physical exercise. By taking responsibility for your emotional well-being, you not only lighten the load on your relationships, but also build a stronger, more resilient connection with yourself. Seneca wrote, "The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not." By learning to detach from your emotions, you protect the bonds you value most, ensuring they're built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding rather than fleeting feelings. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means loving with clarity and acting with wisdom, so your relationships thrive rather than crumble under the weight of unregulated emotions. The lesson here is simple, yet profound. When you master your emotions, you master the art of connection. 3. Increased mental stress. Stress is an inevitable part of life, but when you allow emotions to overwhelm you without proper management, you open the door to a heightened and relentless mental burden. Negative emotions such as anger, anxiety, or sadness, when left unchecked, can fester and leave your mind in a constant state of tension. This ongoing emotional turmoil often feels like a weight pressing on you, robbing you of peace and clarity. Have you ever felt like your thoughts were racing uncontrollably, fueled by frustration or worry? That's the effect of unregulated emotions, creating a cycle of mental discomfort that feeds into itself, making you feel trapped and helpless. As Marcus Aurelius wisely stated, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Yet how often do we forget to claim that power, allowing our emotions to run wild and dominate our inner world? When your emotions remain unchecked, stress becomes more than a mental challenge. It seeps into your physical health. Have you ever experienced headaches after a heated argument? Or found yourself lying awake at night, replaying a frustrating situation over and over again? This is your body responding to the emotional strain you're carrying. Chronic stress can weaken your immune system, making you more susceptible to illnesses, and it can also lead to long-term conditions like high blood pressure or digestive issues. The body and mind are deeply connected, and when you fail to manage your emotions, the physical consequences can pile up. It's not just about feeling overwhelmed in the moment. It's about the toll it takes on your overall well-being. The story of James, a successful manager who constantly found himself caught in cycles of emotional stress at work. Every setback, whether it was a missed deadline or a disagreement with a colleague, felt personal and insurmountable. He carried these feelings home, snapping at his family over small inconveniences and lying awake at night thinking about what went wrong. Over time, the combination of mental and physical strain began to take its toll. James experienced chronic fatigue, frequent migraines, and a growing sense of detachment from the things that once brought him joy. It wasn't until he started practicing emotional detachment, inspired by Stoic principles, that he began to regain control. By learning to step back and ask, is this reaction serving me, or is it adding unnecessary stress? James found a way to break free from the cycle and create a healthier balance in his life. When emotions control your mental state, you become a prisoner to your reactions, often amplifying problems rather than resolving them. Stress becomes the default setting, leaving little room for creativity, calm, or rational thinking. The Stoics taught that our ability to manage emotions is the key to inner peace. As Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This wisdom reminds us that the stress we feel is often magnified by how we choose to interpret and react to situations. Losing a client at work or facing criticism from a loved one can feel devastating in the moment. But when viewed from a more detached perspective, these events are often manageable and far less threatening than they first appear. Now, let's reflect on modern life, where external triggers are more abundant than ever. The constant barrage of emails, social media notifications, and daily obligations can make you feel like you're perpetually on. When emotions like frustration or worry flare up in response to these triggers, they add layers to your already busy mind, turning manageable stress into something much larger. These small, unchecked emotional responses accumulate over time, leaving you mentally and physically exhausted. What if you paused instead, took a deep breath, and reminded yourself, as Epictetus suggested, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Detaching from emotions doesn't mean suppressing them. It means acknowledging them, understanding their source, and then deciding how much power to give them. Physical practices like deep breathing, mindful meditation, or even a brisk walk can also help interrupt the cycle of emotional overwhelm, grounding you in the present moment and restoring balance. By taking these steps, you reclaim your ability to respond to life's challenges from a place of calm rather than chaos. Think about your own experiences. How often have you allowed emotions to linger, turning a small inconvenience into hours or even days of stress? What might change if you approached these moments with the clarity of detachment, letting go of the need to react immediately? By practicing emotional discipline, you not only reduce mental stress, but also enhance your ability to navigate life's ups and downs with resilience. Remember, stress is inevitable, but suffering is optional. The choice lies in how you manage the emotions that arise. Ultimately, mastering emotional detachment is about protecting your mental health and creating a life of greater stability and peace. By taking control of your inner world, you build a foundation that supports not only your well-being, but also your ability to thrive in all areas of life. So the next time stress starts to creep in, pause and remind yourself of this truth. You are not your emotions. They are merely passing waves, and you have the strength to rise above them. 4. Decline in mental health. Failing to control your emotions can have a profound and lasting impact on your mental health, often contributing to disorders like anxiety, depression, and even panic attacks. When negative emotions such as guilt, sadness, or anger are left unresolved, they accumulate and weigh heavily on your mind, gradually eroding your mental resilience. The longer these emotions go unchecked, the harder it becomes to recover from their effects, and what starts as a fleeting feeling can evolve into a toxic cycle of negativity. As Marcus Aurelius wisely advised, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Yet, when emotions overwhelm us, we often lose sight of this inner power, allowing external situations and internal turmoil to dictate our mental state. In today's fast-paced world, the inability to manage emotions often leads to a sense of constant overwhelm. Consider how easy it is to let a moment of anger or disappointment spiral into hours or even days of mental unrest. A minor mistake at work, a passing criticism from a friend, or even a frustrating traffic jam can trigger a cascade of thoughts and feelings that leave you mentally exhausted. Over time, this constant emotional strain can take a toll, manifesting as chronic stress, insomnia, or even more serious conditions like generalized anxiety disorder or clinical depression. Have you ever found yourself ruminating over a problem long after it's resolved, replaying conversations or decisions in your head until they become larger and more distressing than they truly are? This is a clear sign of how unresolved emotions can hijack your mental health, leaving you trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and despair. The relationship between unmanaged emotions and declining mental health is not just theoretical. It's deeply rooted in how our brains and bodies respond to stress. When you allow emotions to fester, your body reacts by releasing stress hormones like cortisol, which over time can weaken your immune system, increase blood pressure, and disrupt your ability to think clearly. This creates a vicious cycle where physical symptoms fuel emotional distress, and emotional distress exacerbates physical symptoms. As Seneca aptly observed, we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. This highlights a vital truth. Much of the harm caused by emotions comes not from the events themselves, but from how we allow those events to dominate our minds. The key to breaking free from this cycle lies in learning to detach from your emotions, not by suppressing them, but by observing and managing them with intention. For instance, instead of letting guilt over a past mistake spiral into self-criticism, try reframing it as an opportunity to learn and grow. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This simple yet profound mindset shift can transform how you approach emotional challenges, giving you the space to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Another powerful strategy for safeguarding your mental health is to focus on the present moment. Many of the emotions that harm us, regret, guilt, worry, are tied to the past or future. Practicing mindfulness through techniques like meditation or deep breathing can help anchor you in the present, where your mind is less likely to spiral into negative patterns. Take a moment to pause, breathe deeply, and remind yourself that this moment is all that truly exists. This practice not only calms your mind but also helps you develop greater awareness of your emotional triggers, allowing you to address them before they take hold. You apply these principles in your daily life? The next time you feel overwhelmed, try journaling your thoughts to gain clarity. Write down what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and whether it's within your control. This simple exercise can help you process emotions constructively, rather than letting them linger and fester. Additionally, consider seeking support from trusted friends, family, or a mental health professional. Sharing your struggles with others can provide valuable perspective and remind you that you're not alone in facing emotional challenges. It's also essential to recognize the importance of self-compassion. When emotions lead to mistakes or setbacks, it's easy to fall into a pattern of self-blame that further damages your mental health. Instead, treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend. Remind yourself that experiencing emotions is part of being human, and that every challenge you face is an opportunity for growth. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have endured countless trials. Now let your character shine. This perspective not only builds resilience but also fosters a sense of hope and purpose, even in the face of adversity. Ultimately, protecting your mental health begins with taking ownership of your emotional well-being. By practicing detachment, cultivating mindfulness, and seeking support when needed, you can break free from the toxic cycles of unresolved emotions and build a life rooted in clarity, balance, and strength. 5. Decreased work performance. Let's talk about how emotions, when left unchecked, can directly impact your performance at work. When personal emotions like anger, frustration, or anxiety creep into your professional life, they cloud your focus, impair your judgment, and disrupt your ability to perform at your best. Think about a time when you were upset about something unrelated to work, perhaps an argument at home or personal financial stress. Did it affect how you approached tasks at work? Perhaps you found yourself distracted, struggling to complete even simple assignments. This is the ripple effect of emotional interference. It doesn't stay confined to one area of your life, but seeps into every corner, reducing your productivity and causing you to miss important opportunities. Yet when emotions control you, it becomes difficult to focus on what truly matters in the moment, especially in a professional setting. When emotions dominate your mind, they create a fog that makes decision-making more difficult. You might overanalyze situations, procrastinate on important tasks, or worse, make impulsive decisions that could have been avoided with a clear head. Let's say you're preparing for a critical presentation at work, but you've been feeling overwhelmed by personal issues. Instead of focusing on delivering your best, you find yourself distracted, doubting your abilities, or perhaps overreacting to constructive criticism. This can result in mistakes or missed details that could cost you the respect of your colleagues or even the success of your project. Emotions are powerful, and if not managed, they can turn routine challenges into seemingly insurmountable obstacles, leaving you feeling stuck and unproductive. But it's not just your individual work that suffers. Unchecked emotions can also disrupt your relationships with coworkers and supervisors. When you carry emotional baggage into the workplace, it often manifests in your interactions. Short tempers, passive-aggressive responses, or an inability to communicate effectively. These behaviors can lead to conflicts that damage trust and collaboration, creating a toxic work environment. For example, if a coworker points out an oversight on your part, you might interpret their feedback as a personal attack and respond defensively, escalating a minor issue into a full-blown argument. This kind of emotional reaction doesn't just harm your relationships, it also hinders the team's ability to function cohesively. Seneca reminds us, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. But when emotions get the better of you, kindness is often replaced with hostility or resentment, further alienating you from those around you." In today's fast-paced and competitive work environment, emotional discipline is more important than ever. Deadlines, meetings, and unexpected challenges can be stressful enough without the added burden of unresolved personal feelings. The key is to recognize when your emotions are influencing your behavior and to develop strategies for managing them. As Epictetus wisely said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." By focusing on the task at hand rather than the emotions swirling in your mind, you can regain control and deliver your best work. Another effective strategy is to set boundaries between your personal and professional life. This doesn't mean ignoring your emotions or pretending they don't exist. It means creating space to process them in a way that doesn't interfere with your work. If you've had a stressful morning at home, take a few moments to reset before starting your workday. Techniques like deep breathing, journaling, or even a short walk can help you clear your mind and approach the day with a fresh perspective. It's also helpful to communicate with trusted colleagues or mentors when you're struggling. Sharing your challenges in a professional manner can foster understanding and support, helping you navigate tough times without letting them derail your performance. As you reflect on your own experiences, consider how often your emotions have impacted your ability to focus and perform at work. Have there been times when frustration with a coworker led to unnecessary conflict, or when personal stress caused you to miss an important deadline? What could have changed if you'd taken a moment to pause, detach from your emotions, and respond with clarity rather than impulse? By practicing emotional detachment, you not only protect your productivity, but also enhance your ability to collaborate, lead, and succeed in any professional setting. While emotions are an inevitable part of life, they don't have to control you. By learning to manage your feelings and focus on what you can control, you can reduce emotional interference and perform at your best. Remember, your work is not just about completing tasks. It's about how you approach challenges, build relationships, and grow as a professional. By mastering your emotions, you not only improve your work performance, but also create a foundation for long-term success and fulfillment. 6. Dependence on unhealthy habits. When you struggle to manage your emotions, it's all too easy to fall into the trap of unhealthy habits that offer temporary escape but cause long-term harm. Instead of addressing the root cause of your feelings, whether it's sadness, stress, or frustration, you might find yourself seeking comfort in behaviors like overeating, substance abuse, or endless scrolling on social media. These actions may provide a fleeting sense of relief, a brief distraction from emotional discomfort, but they often come with significant costs to your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. As Epictetus wisely noted, "No man is free who is not master of himself." By turning to these habits, you surrender control to external sources of comfort, making it harder to build the resilience needed to face life's challenges. While these behaviors might dull the edge of your emotions temporarily, they don't address the underlying issues causing your distress. In fact, they often compound the problem. Overeating can lead to weight gain and health issues like diabetes or heart disease. Substance abuse can escalate into addiction, damaging your relationships, career, and overall quality of life. And excessive use of social media, while seemingly harmless, can heighten feelings of inadequacy, loneliness, and anxiety as you compare yourself to the curated lives of others. These habits create a vicious cycle. The more you rely on them, the more disconnected you become from addressing the real emotional pain beneath the surface. Why do we gravitate toward these habits when emotions feel overwhelming? It's because they offer instant gratification, a quick and easy way to numb the pain. But what if we paused for a moment and asked ourselves, is this really helping me? Or is it just delaying the inevitable? The truth is, these habits rarely solve anything. As Marcus Aurelius wisely observed, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. By choosing to address your emotions rather than escape them, you reclaim control and begin to break free from the chains of unhealthy behaviors. Modern life makes it even easier to fall into these traps. With food delivery apps, 24/7 access to alcohol, and endless distractions on our phones, the path to avoidance has never been more accessible. But convenience comes at a cost. Have you ever scrolled through social media for hours, only to feel worse afterward? Or indulged in comfort food only to regret it later? These behaviors may seem harmless in the moment, but over time, they chip away at your physical health, drain your energy, and leave you feeling even more disconnected from yourself. What if, instead of reaching for a quick fix, you took a moment to breathe, reflect, and face your emotions head-on? The key to breaking free from dependence on unhealthy habits lies in building emotional awareness and developing healthier coping mechanisms. Start by identifying your triggers. What situations or feelings drive you toward these behaviors? Is it boredom, loneliness, or fear of failure? Once you recognize these patterns, you can begin replacing harmful habits with constructive ones. It's also important to practice self-compassion as you work through these challenges. Beating yourself up for turning to unhealthy habits will only deepen your emotional pain. Instead, remind yourself that struggling with emotions is part of being human. What matters most is your willingness to learn and grow from these experiences. As Seneca said, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Each step you take toward healthier choices is a step toward reclaiming your freedom, and creating a life rooted in purpose and self-respect. Ultimately, the journey to overcoming emotional dependence on unhealthy habits is a journey back to yourself. It's about rediscovering your inner strength, reclaiming your power, and building a life that supports your well-being rather than undermines it. 7. Missed opportunities for personal growth. When emotions take control of your life, they can hold you back from growing into your fullest potential. It's easy to get trapped in the grip of past regrets or consumed by fear of the future, and in doing so, you lose sight of the one place where change and growth are truly possible, the present moment. When you're disconnected from the present, you miss valuable opportunities for self-development, whether it's learning new skills, building stronger relationships, or cultivating habits that bring you closer to your goals. Yet, when emotions are left unchecked, they rob you of this power, making you reactive instead of proactive, and leaving little room for patience, responsibility, or composure, all qualities essential for personal growth and fulfillment. Think about the times when anger, sadness, or fear may have paralyzed you from taking action. Perhaps you were so consumed by self-doubt after a failure that you hesitated to try again, or maybe you were so focused on blaming others for your circumstances that you missed the chance to reflect and learn from your experience. When emotions control your perspective, they create a distorted view of reality, making small problems appear insurmountable and distracting you from the bigger picture. Take, for example, John, a middle-aged entrepreneur who spent years regretting a failed business venture. Instead of learning from the experience and moving forward, John allowed his fear of failure to stop him from pursuing new opportunities. It wasn't until he started practicing emotional detachment, asking himself, "What can I learn from this?" rather than, "Why did this happen to me?" that he began to rebuild his confidence and launch a new, more successful endeavor. John's story is a reminder that growth often begins where emotional detachment allows clarity to enter. In life, it's all too common to see people held back by emotions that distract them from self-improvement. Negative emotions like envy can keep you locked in unproductive comparisons with others, while resentment can prevent you from forgiving and moving on. Both scenarios waste the mental energy you could be using to better yourself. Have you ever found yourself scrolling through social media, comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel, only to feel worse afterward? Or held onto a grudge so tightly that it blocked you from building meaningful relationships? These are clear examples of how emotions can create barriers to growth. As Epictetus observed, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Learning to detach from your initial emotional reactions allows you to focus on what you can control, your own growth and actions. Detaching from emotions doesn't mean ignoring them. It means learning to manage and understand them so they don't cloud your judgment. When you let go of the emotional baggage of the past, you free yourself to explore new possibilities. Imagine the opportunities you might seize if fear didn't hold you back, or if anger didn't consume your energy. For example, consider the importance of patience in personal growth. When you're too quick to react emotionally, you often make impulsive decisions that you later regret. Patience allows you to pause, reflect, and make choices that align with your values and goals. Similarly, composure is essential when facing challenges, as it helps you navigate difficult situations with clarity and resolve. Without these traits, which are undermined by uncontrolled emotions, it becomes nearly impossible to pursue meaningful growth. One powerful way to develop emotional detachment is through reflection. Taking time each day to journal your thoughts or meditate on your experiences can help you recognize patterns in your emotional responses and identify areas for growth. If you notice that fear of rejection often prevents you from speaking up or pursuing opportunities, you can work on reframing your mindset. Instead of seeing rejection as a personal failure, you can view it as a learning experience that brings you closer to success. As Seneca wisely said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." By shifting your perspective, you turn what once felt like an emotional obstacle into a stepping stone for growth. Modern examples of emotional detachment leading to success are all around us. Think of athletes who, despite facing defeat after defeat, use those moments to learn and refine their skills. Or professionals who, instead of dwelling on a missed promotion, focus on developing new competencies that make them better candidates for future opportunities. What separates those who grow from those who remain stuck is their ability to detach from the emotions of failure and channel their energy into self-improvement. The same principle applies in personal relationships. Letting go of resentment or jealousy creates space for building siyl. In the end, mastering your emotions isn't about suppressing how you feel. It's about learning to channel those feelings into actions that serve your growth and purpose. Life will always throw challenges your way, but when you choose to detach from the grip of negativity, you unlock a deeper sense of freedom and resilience. So ask yourself, what could you achieve if you stopped letting emotions control you and started using them to propel you forward? The journey starts with a single step. Take it today and let your actions define the life you truly want to live.